Hey there, everyone. My name is Bernadette Smith. My pronouns are she and her. Welcome to 5 Things in 15 Minutes, my weekly show where I bring good vibes to DEI. That is good vibes to diversity, equity, and inclusion with a little dash of corporate social responsibility. What I've found is that there are lots of news stories about what's going wrong in the world and lots of negative data. But there are also a lot of things going right. That's what I like to focus on. I search for DEI stories that we can be inspired by and learn from. My hope is to inspire you to experiment with some of these inclusive actions and policies within your own organization to help you build a more inclusive world. In this week's episode, I'm joined by Daniel J. Downer, who is our Senior Facilitator here at Equality Institute. I'm so excited to have him with you today. And this week, our conversation is about flexible work laws, women's basketball records, and Ashley Brundage for state rep in Florida, and more. Let's get started. Welcome to the show, Daniel. How are you doing?
Thank you so much for having me, Bernadette. I am doing good and excited to be doing this with you. It feels like it's been a good minute since we've done a 5 Things in 15 Minutes together. So I'm really excited to just dive right back into it, like all the time.
Well, let's be real. Let's keep it real. I mean, when I first started doing this show, before it was a podcast, it was just a LinkedIn Live, and I was too nervous. I'll be completely honest. I was too nervous. Had some like imposter syndrome stuff to invite people that I didn't really know to be guests on the show, and so I just relied on my team. And so you were you were a very regular guest there for a while, and I have since gotten a little more courage and have had a lot of other folks on the show as well. So welcome back. Why don't you tell folks a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Daniel J. Downer. The pronouns that I use are he, him, his, and I am one of the senior facilitators with the Equality Institute, just sharing and facilitating a lot of the amazing workshops and content that we have centered around diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yeah, I'm really excited by the work we get to do together, and I know that our clients, I've always really loved working with you in the past. Can you tell folks a little bit about what excites you about this work?
Ooh, I think what really excites me about this work are those moments where individuals recognize that they're already doing a lot of the things that we talk about. They already recognize that they are being an ally. They already recognize that they're being inclusive. They may not necessarily have the technical or formal language, but that really excites me, seeing those aha moments and those light bulbs go off like, oh, I'm actually really, really doing this. And I think the other thing that excites me is the eagerness that some folks have where it's, I don't know all things DEI. I'm not sure where to start, but I have an open heart and an open mind. And yeah, that excites me as well, is that willingness to learn, to be deeply curious and jump right into really trying to figure out how to navigate DEI. It sounds so simple as an acronym, but I mean, we go into some really deep stuff. So I'm always excited when folks are excited and eager to take that journey with me.
Yeah, I hear that. I love that as well. I love those light bulb moments, and I love the validation that people start to feel when they yeah, you're right, when they see what they've already been doing and how it sort of fits into the bigger picture.
Absolutely.
The DEI doesn't have to be this sort of extra thing.
No, not at
Um,
all.
so you're currently based in Florida.
Yes.
What's the DEI conversation in your neck of the woods these days?
It's all over the place, to be quite honest with you. The conversations that are happening around DEI go from those of us who understand its importance and how necessary it is to ensure that we have diverse and inclusive communities, diverse and inclusive organizations and workplaces, all the way to some folks who just don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
Some folks who not only just don't get it, but don't want to create space for others to get it. So it really is all over the place. You know, we have someone, we're not going to necessarily say his name, who is the governor of our state, who has really over the past couple of years tried to chip away as much as possible, you know, the beauty of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And that's been disheartening, very, very disheartening, and sometimes saddening and infuriating. There also have been some victories we've had in Florida where,
Mm-hmm.
thank goodness for accountability and checks and balances and
Right.
systems in place being like, not so fast, not so fast. And so that's been really great to see that there is a community that is coming together and saying, we believe in the work of DEI, and we're going to stand by it, and we're going to fight for this, because that's what we really need. We need beautiful, thriving communities that are celebrating the rich diversity, that are being inclusive of individuals of all various backgrounds, and part of that spills into the workplace, out into our personal lives. And so yeah, it's been a spectrum here in Florida, which I think is very much Florida anyways. We're a hodgepodge for it all.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. And I guess if you look a little bit closer to other places, there are a lot of other places that are the same, hodgepodge for it all. Even here in Illinois, lots of big differences between Southern Illinois and Northern Illinois. So let's get into this week's 5 Things newsletter. In this week's newsletter, I wrote about how lately I've been feeling, I guess the word I'll use now is like energetically kind of misaligned, feeling kind of, I don't know whether it's seasonal. I'm just feeling a little kind of run down, not really sick, but fatigue. And it meant that I pushed back a client deliverable. And in doing so, I lied to the client about what was the matter. I said there was a family issue, and I just sort of said it like out of conditioning, right? Just sort of like that's the sort of default excuse. And I didn't say that I was sick. And I guess maybe in doing so, I mean, I didn't miss the due date, but I guess in just lying, I felt like sort of saying that it was my family made me look stronger, or that I didn't look weak because I wasn't feeling great. It was just, and it all sort of happened without even thinking about it, right? I just sort of like, it was sort of the default lie. And ultimately, end of the day, no big deal, harmless. But still, like, people do it all the time, and they do it at work. And so I think that cumulatively, the effect of all of these lies that people have at work is intense, right? And it really does add up. And so I wanted to share that, because I think that it would be pretty cool to have a workplace and have an environment where we didn't need to make excuses, and we could just be a little bit more honest about what's really going on with us. So that's sort of what I was reflecting on this week.
Yeah, you know, I think about a term that we talk about a lot, and you know this, psychological safety, and being in a space where you feel that you can bring up maybe what is going on with you personally, or might be a barrier to meeting that deadline, or responding to that email. And so Yeah, when I was reading it and just hearing you talk, I thought about how many of us struggle with that, how many of us struggle with finding psychological safety and feel that we have to cover or tell
Hmm.
that lie because we can't necessarily feel vulnerable out of fear that maybe that might have some negative impact on us. So thank you for uplifting that.
Yeah, you're welcome. I just think that we all could be a little more honest.
Yeah.
So I will start with myself being a little vulnerable about that, and at least putting it out there that we should, let's cut each other some slack. All right, Daniel, psychological safety is so important. So thank
So
you. Thank you for bringing that up. And I have my own company, so I have like, you would think that who's my lack of psychological safety with my clients? I don't know. I'm just sort of like, now I'm thinking aloud, right?
mhm, mhm. Yeah, but I think even for me, I've been charging myself to hold myself accountable to being as transparent and vulnerable and standing in that and standing on it, and not necessarily sugarcoating it. If I'm not able to make the deadline, I'm not able to make the deadline. And I think that has helped encourage me more as I'm being vulnerable and transparent. And it's like, okay, it's all right.
Yeah.
It encourages me more to like, okay, there doesn't need to be some flowery story or excuse to kind of lessen the blow or feel like it'll, validate the reason why this isn't
Hmm.
happening or is not going to happen on time. So yeah,
Yeah.
one step
It's
at a time.
contagious.
Yeah.
And it's contagious. Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into this week's five things. The first
That's
story
it.
this week comes from Singapore, which has enshrined flexible work in law. So, employees in Singapore gained the legal right to request flexible work arrangements, including 4-day work weeks and remote work days starting December 1st. So, they've created a formal process, mandated a formal process for flexible work requests. And I love this because it's enshrining it in law. Like, it's giving people permission legally to not lie, right? To hopefully
Yeah.
have more flexibility, so they can have more of the space to have a full life.
Absolutely. I really enjoyed reading this article and really hearing about, just like this innovative approach that they're taking to ensuring that workers have like, a balance between work and personal life. I also found very interesting when I was looking, and it was down at the bottom about how the push of this came from Singapore's. They have a tripartite work group, which is basically comprised of representatives of the government, trade unions, rank and file workers, business leaders, and HR professionals. And they
Mm,
basically convened to express the purpose of building out this flexible work guidance. And from it, there were 10 recommendations that they had, and essentially the country's enacting on those 10. So I'm very interested, one, to find out what are the other nine. If this is just one of the 10, what are the other nine? But then
yeah,
also I loved how it was a great example of inclusiveness, right? It wasn't
right.
just one group saying, okay, this is what we think needs to be done. There was a community that was built, and there was, and we talk about this, the need of not only having diverse teams, but also diverse and inclusive teams. And it
Mhm.
sounds like they had a very diverse and inclusive work group. And from that, they were able to come up with these big, bright, innovative ideas. One
Yeah,
of them being this. So yeah, really am excited to hear more about the follow-up of this, but then also curious to do some research and find out what are the other nine, because
yeah.
maybe the other nine are some things that we'll be talking about in 5 things in 15 minutes later on in the year.
Yes, that's exactly right. You stole my line. That is
Yeah.
right, Daniel. Okay, the second story this week comes from the NCAA women's basketball Final Four. It set record. The final match. I'm clearly not like a big sports person. It set
Ooh.
records, which beat viewership of the men's final. So it became the most watched basketball game since 2019 and the most watched spring sporting event in 5 years. So much success and elevation for women's basketball right now, which I love, love, love.
Yes, likewise. So I am a super activated, loyal March Madness fan. I love
Uh,
it. Women's as well as men's college basketball. And, it's been beautiful to see uh, women's college basketball at the forefront this year for so many different reasons. The diversity that has been on display with the teams, the camaraderie, and so I was really excited to talk about this a little bit. I'm gonna be honest. I'm kind of glad in a way that South Carolina won because no offense to Iowa, they knocked out my team in my bracket, UConn, but it's okay.
mm.
I love that once again we're starting to see more visibility when it comes to women's basketball, more visibility when it comes to women's sports, and I think that's really important to see because women are doing some amazing things when it comes to various sports, and it's not just men, right?
Yeah.
So that's been really great to see. And I know we it's not in the article, but while there was this visibility of women's sport, it's also unearthed a lot of conversations. I think I was just recently looking at something separate from this where it was signing day for the WNBA.
Mm-hmm.
Caitlin Clark. There's been a lot of buzz around the pay disparity
Yeah.
between the WNBA and the NBA, which is a conversation for another time. But I think
Yeah.
it really just highlights that while it's great for us to have this visibility, there's still a lot more work that we have to do when we talk about equity
Yeah.
within the sports arena.
Massive,
Yeah.
massive equity work. But hopefully the visibility of the disparity, because how many memes have there been about the Caitlin Clark WNBA rookie contract
Yeah.
versus whoever the first
Yeah,
draft
it's
pick
been
was?
all over. All over.
So you got to start with awareness, right? And then the rebellion. So I appreciate that we're at least having the conversation more and more.
Absolutely.
All right. The third story this week comes from Allstate, which has really done a nice job hitting its stride with a hybrid work model. I like to talk about different hybrid work models when I see things that seem to be successful. So, what they've done is they've given leaders a portion of a $10 million connections budget, and these managers have the autonomy to allocate funds for various things that really are personal to their team, that mean something to their team. So, they could be in person meetings, team building events, virtual contests, whatever, complete flexibility. But what's been cool is that the result of this and the discretion has led to major employee engagement. I mean, so Allstate, like they closed their huge headquarters here in Illinois and they went
Yeah.
remote, like basically almost fully remote.
Mhm.
And so this is a big deal that they have that level of engagement. 84%.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it was like 91% provided positive feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think they've done and are a shining example and model of just that pivot
Yeah.
post the pandemic within the virtual space. I remember when the pandemic first hit, how there was this pivot to virtual. And I think collectively a lot of folks were like, okay, this is kind of cool. We're in a virtual space. And then 6 to 9 months later, we were all like exhausted, right?
Yeah.
And cameras off, all of that. But yeah, Allstate has done a really great job with that pivot. And I love how they have allowed their teams and their employees to really reimagine what those connections look like,
Yeah.
what they look like, how those funds can be used. I think that flexibility definitely has been really powerful in them seeing the success that they've seen with this.
Yeah, exactly. Because there is this sort of, I guess, excuse that people are using that of disengagement, from remote and hybrid work models, and that may be true, but clearly Allstate is doing something right, so it doesn't have to be true. Okay, the fourth story this week is from the state of Wisconsin, which has a new law adding Asian American and Hmong history to K-12 school curriculums. So now this means that they expanded their inclusion in their school curriculums, K-12 curriculum. So it currently requires instruction of Black, Native American, and Latino history. And this is sort of an addition to that, and gives Asian folks in the state and other folks an opportunity to see themselves represented. I think it's so, so important.
Yeah, so important and so powerful. I think, especially when we're talking about diversity, and even more so on the part about inclusion, history is such a key part of that, right? Like when we're connecting with individuals who are different from us, part of connecting with them may require us to know about their culture and their history. And so I think this is a really, really powerful and falling in alignment with that. And I would also say that this is something that we're seeing happening across the United States, if I'm not mistaken. There are other states, Florida, where I live, New Jersey, Illinois, they have similar mandates where they are incorporating within curriculum history of represented groups within those communities. And so I think that's really powerful. I think that's really important. I think it's also very inspiring for folks to see themselves, hear their stories and their experiences within the classroom.
Yeah, absolutely is. Couldn't agree more. Okay, the last story this week comes from Florida as well. So this is about Ashley Brundage. Do you know Ashley, Daniel?
I do not know Ashley personally, but I love this story. It's taking place in Tampa, which is right down the road from me.
Yeah, let me tee up the story.
So yeah.
Ashley is a trans woman, and she lives in South Tampa. She's also a DEI speaker and author, and she's running for state rep. So state representative. What I think is so she has the possibility of being the first trans woman, the first transgender elected official in South Tampa, and I think maybe the first statewide elected trans person in Florida, I believe.
Yes.
If she wins. So this is really key. I mean, she's running on platforms on key issues like insurance costs, support for small businesses. But what's very cool here is that she won the Spirit of the Community Award from the Florida Commission on the Status of Women in 2022. And she has a signed letter from the governor, who is an anti-LGBTQ governor, and she's using that signed letter as part of her campaign. And I think that's pretty cool. Showing bipartisan support, right?
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. I also think, I believe based on the story, she transitioned in 2008. So this has happened well after her transition. Yeah, but I think it's really dope to see that, there's this strong possibility of having the first ever trans state elected official within the state. I also think it's really cool, and I don't want to say comical, but I couldn't help but chuckle when I saw that, she received the Spirit of Community Award from Ron DeSantis. He couldn't provide comment.
Right.
I'm sure is probably fuming, but no, I think it'll. I definitely think using that to draw bipartisan support is really powerful, is really important, in conjunction with, once again, the different things that she's running with within her platform. The cost of insurance, protecting small businesses, the right to choose. I think this is locally more a reflection of kind of like broader, from a national standpoint, some of the conversations and some of the things that are going to be important in upcoming elections. So sending all good vibes and energy over to Tampa, and cannot wait to hear what is going to be the outcome of this upcoming race.
Me either. Well, good luck to Ashley. All right. So in this week's call to action, I am sharing an article from HBR written by Lily Zhang. And they wrote what needs to change about DEI and what doesn't. I found this article to be really interesting. So sharing that for you folks to check out. Daniel, thank you so much for joining me today. It's always a pleasure having you on the show. Welcome
Likewise.
back.
Thank you.
Folks, Daniel is awesome. I hope that you check him out in previous 5 things. I hope that you, those of you who are work for an organization, bring Daniel in to speak or lead one of our workshops, or me, one of us, or someone else from our team. Daniel, thank you again so much. I hope that you have a great week.
Likewise. Thank you for having me.
And folks, if you don't already get the 5 Things newsletter, you can subscribe at 5thingsdei.com. Thanks, everyone.